In the quaint little town of Oakridge, where white picket fences bordered perfectly manicured lawns and laughter of children echoed through the streets, a sinister darkness lurked just beneath the surface. The small community had always prided itself on being safe and secure, but all of that changed when the Smith family experienced a tragedy that would haunt them forever. It was a cool autumn evening when the Smiths gathered for a family dinner. Mr. and Mrs. Smith exchanged warm smiles as they watched their two children, Emily and Michael, chatter about their day at school. But little did they know that this would be the last peaceful moment they would share as a family. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the neighborhood, Emily and Michael decided to play in the backyard before bedtime. Mrs. Smith glanced outside from the kitchen window, feeling a slight unease in the pit of her stomach. She couldn't shake off the feeling that someone or something was watching them. Intrigued by the ominous atmosphere, I, Detective Jonathan Harper, was drawn to Oakridge to investigate the chilling series of disappearances that had struck fear into the hearts of its residents. I had heard rumors of peculiar occurrences in the past, but nothing quite as malevolent as what I was about to confront. Arriving at the Smiths' home, I was met with an eerie stillness that enveloped the neighborhood. A full moon hung overhead, casting an ethereal glow on the houses and streets below. The air seemed thick with anticipation, and as I approached the Smiths' front porch, I noticed strange symbols etched into the woodwork, a twisted amalgamation of ancient runes and demonic sigils. The front door creaked open, revealing a distraught Mrs. Smith. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying, and she clutched a faded photograph of Emily and Michael as if it were a lifeline. I introduced myself gently, assuring her that I would do everything in my power to find her missing children. She led me to the backyard, the place where her children had vanished without a trace. The once tranquil space was now filled with an oppressive aura that sent shivers down my spine. Broken toys lay scattered across the grass, a stark reminder of the carefree innocence that had been stolen away. Near the edge of the yard, I noticed an unusual symbol, a grotesque figure with elongated limbs and an aura of malevolence. It was the same symbol I had seen etched on the front porch. I took out my notebook and sketched the symbol, vowing to research its origins later. As I examined the area, I couldn't shake the feeling that something ancient and evil had been unleashed upon this unsuspecting family. I had dealt with my fair share of gruesome crimes, but this one felt different, as if it tapped into the darkest corners of human nightmares. Determined to unravel the mystery, I pledged to dig deeper into the town's history, seeking any hint of a connection to the symbols and the sinister forces that seemed to have gripped Oakridge. Little did I know that my journey into the heart of darkness had only just begun, and that the shadows of the past would reach out to ensnare me in their chilling embrace. In the following days, as the investigation continued, I would come face to face with a malevolent force, one that fed on the innocence of children and left behind a trail of grief and despair. As I delved deeper into the nightmarish secrets of Oakridge, I could feel the presence of the malevolent entity watching my every move, taunting me with its sinister laughter. The stage was set for a battle of unimaginable proportions, one that would push me to my limits as a detective and force me to confront not only the evil that lurked in the shadows, but also the demons that haunted my own past. In the end, only one question remained. Could I unravel the web of darkness that had ensnared the Smith family before it claimed its next victim? Only time would tell, but I was determined to face the horrors that awaited me and bring justice to those who had been wronged. Little did I know that this investigation would take me on a harrowing journey through the darkest recesses of human fear and test the very limits of my sanity. The tale of the demon that fed on the souls of children had just begun, and I could feel its malevolent gaze fixed upon me, ready to drag me into a nightmarish abyss from which there might be no escape. As Detective Jonathan Harper delved deeper into the chilling case, he began to uncover the dark secrets that had plagued Oakridge for generations. With each passing day, the investigation brought to light an unsettling pattern of disappearances that seemed to span back centuries, all linked by the same sinister symbol, the grotesque figure with elongated limbs. The demon's malevolent hunger had fixated on a new family, the Browns. The Brown family had recently moved into the old Victorian mansion on the outskirts of Oakridge, unaware of the malevolent force that lurked in the shadows. Mr. Brown was an esteemed historian, and Mrs. Brown was an accomplished painter. Their daughter, Lily, was a bright, curious child, with a penchant for exploring the hidden corners of their new home. One fateful night, as the moon hung ominously in the sky, Lily heard a faint whisper calling to her from the darkness within the mansion. Entranced by the haunting voice, she followed it through winding corridors and secret passageways until she stumbled upon a hidden chamber. There, etched into the walls, she discovered the same malevolent symbol that had marked the Smiths' home, a sign of the ancient evil that had now set its sights on her. Unbeknownst to Lily and her family, the demon had already marked her as its next prey. The malevolent entity relished in the innocent aura of children, drawing strength from their pure souls. It lured its victims with whispers and promises of untold wonders, only to consume them in the darkest depths of its lair. Detective Harper meticulously pieced together the events surrounding the Brown family's move, recognizing the eerie similarity to previous disappearances. He realized that the demon was not bound by time or space, but rather it hunted indiscriminately, leaving a trail of shattered lives in its wake. Desperate to understand the ancient symbols that seemed to be the key to the demon's malevolence, Detective Harper sought the help of Professor Alan Wainwright, an expert in occult sciences and ancient languages. The professor resided in a secluded cabin on the outskirts of Oakridge, his life dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of the supernatural. With a heavy heart and a mind weighed down by the horrors he had witnessed, Detective Harper made his way through the dense forest, following a narrow trail that led to the professor's abode. As he approached the cabin, he noticed peculiar symbols carved into the trees, as if warning trespassers of the forbidden knowledge that lay within. Upon entering the cabin, Detective Harper was met with the pungent aroma of old books and incense. The professor, an elderly man with a wild mane of gray hair and piercing blue eyes, greeted him with an enigmatic smile. "I knew you'd come," the professor said, as if he had been expecting the detective's arrival. "You seek answers, and answers you shall find, but beware, for the knowledge you seek may be more than your mortal mind can bear." Undeterred, Detective Harper shared his findings with the professor, laying out the chilling evidence of the demon's predations and the strange symbols left in its wake. Professor Wainwright's eyes narrowed as he listened, his mind racing with possibilities. "You have encountered a malevolent entity known as Malgorth, the Soul Devourer," the professor finally spoke, his voice tinged with a mix of reverence and dread. "Legend speaks of a demon that has haunted these lands for centuries, feeding on the souls of innocent children. It is said that Malgorth's origin is shrouded in darkness, that it was born from the deepest abyss of human fears." As the professor divulged the chilling history of Malgorth, Detective Harper's heart sank with the weight of the revelation. He now knew that he was up against a force that transcended the realms of human understanding, a force driven by an insatiable hunger for innocence and purity. Armed with the professor's knowledge, Detective Harper vowed to protect Lily and her family from the clutches of the malevolent demon. But the shadows of the past had already intertwined with the present, and the lines between reality and nightmare were beginning to blur. The stage was set for a harrowing battle between good and evil, one that would test the limits of Detective Harper's courage and unravel the truth behind the ancient evil that haunted Oakridge. As the detective prepared to face the Soul Devourer, he could not help but wonder if the cost of victory would be more than he could bear. Little did he know that the darkest hour was yet to come, and that the true horrors of Malgorth were yet to be revealed. The night air was thick with an otherworldly tension as Detective Jonathan Harper patrolled the streets of Oakridge, haunted by the unsettling history he had unearthed. The professor's revelations about the demon Malgorth had ignited a newfound sense of urgency within him. As he walked beneath the flickering streetlights, he couldn't help but notice the faint etchings of symbols on the walls, each more cryptic than the last. The town seemed to hold its breath, as if the very fabric of reality had been stretched thin by the malevolent force that had infiltrated it. Detective Harper's senses were heightened, and every rustle of leaves and distant whisper seemed to carry an ominous weight. It was during one of his nighttime patrols that Detective Harper's instincts led him to a small, abandoned playground. The swings swayed eerily in the wind, and a cold chill crawled down his spine. Moonlight cast eerie shadows across the desolate landscape, and as he approached, he saw the unmistakable markings etched into the ground, the same symbols that had heralded the demon's presence before. He knew he had to act quickly. The thought of another innocent child falling victim to the demon's insatiable hunger was a fate he could not bear. Drawing on every ounce of determination, Detective Harper set a trap, hoping to catch the demon in the act, and finally put an end to the cycle of horror that had plagued Oakridge for so long. As midnight approached, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Detective Harper's heart raced as he waited in the shadows, his grip tightening on his weapon. Suddenly, a sinister whisper echoed through the night, sending shivers down his spine. The ground trembled beneath him as the very fabric of reality seemed to warp and bend. Emerging from the darkness, Malgorth revealed itself, an abomination of twisted limbs and malevolent energy. Its eyes glowed with an unholy fire, fixated on Detective Harper with an unsettling hunger. Without hesitation, the detective opened fire, his bullets tearing through the creature's form, but they seemed to pass through it, as if it were made of smoke. Malgorth's unearthly laughter filled the air as it retaliated, its very touch searing Detective Harper's skin. The two clashed in a battle that defied the laws of nature, a collision of human determination and ancient malevolence. Yet, despite his resolve, Detective Harper found himself overpowered, his strength waning as Malgorth's power grew. With a final, bone-chilling shriek, the demon delivered a devastating blow that sent Detective Harper crashing to the ground. Darkness consumed his vision as he fought to hold on to consciousness, his world fading to black. The following day brought a harsh reality, a reality in which Detective Harper had failed to prevent another abduction. The playground stood empty once more, a haunting reminder of his defeat. But just as despair threatened to engulf him, the ringing of his phone shattered the silence. It was Professor Alan Wainwright on the line, his voice laden with a mix of urgency and determination. He explained that while victory against Malgorth was a daunting endeavor, it was not an impossible one. The professor had delved deeper into his research, uncovering a method to banish the demon and free the stolen children. Their conversation was filled with grim determination, as Professor Wainwright laid out the complex ritual that could potentially vanquish Malgorth. The ritual involved a convergence of ancient symbols, incantations spoken in long-forgotten languages, and an unwavering strength of will. But the professor warned that success was far from guaranteed, and the risks were immense. Detective Harper felt a surge of determination as he listened to the professor's words. He knew that the path ahead would be treacherous and filled with unimaginable challenges, but the thought of freeing the innocent children from the clutches of Malgorth gave him the resolve to press forward. Armed with the professor's guidance, Detective Harper embarked on a quest to gather the necessary components for the ritual. He scoured ancient texts and ventured into the depths of Oakridge's darkest secrets, all while battling his own doubts and fears. The stage was set for a final showdown, a battle that would test not only Detective Harper's strength, but also his faith in the face of unspeakable evil. As he prepared to confront the demon once more, he couldn't help but wonder if the professor's theory held the key to victory, or if it would lead him down a path from which there was no return. The fate of the stolen children hung in the balance, their voices echoing in his mind, urging him to press forward into the heart of darkness. The air crackled with an otherworldly energy as Detective Jonathan Harper stood at the center of a dimly lit chamber, surrounded by ancient symbols etched into the floor. The time had come to face Malgorth, the soul devourer, in an ultimate showdown, a battle that would determine the fate of the stolen children and the very soul of Oakridge. Fear gnawed at the edges of Detective Harper's resolve as the memories of his previous encounter with the malevolent demon resurfaced. He could still feel the searing pain of Malgorth's touch, the weight of its malevolence pressing down on him. But this time, he knew he couldn't falter. He had prepared for this moment, and the lives of innocent children depended on his success. As Detective Harper began the ritual, his heart pounded in his chest. His voice trembled slightly as he chanted the incantations, calling upon the ancient forces that were said to hold the key to banishing the demon. The symbols on the floor glowed with an eerie light, and the chamber seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Unbeknownst to the detective, while he prepared for the final confrontation, Malgorth had already found a new target, a young boy named Timmy, who had wandered into the nearby woods. Drawn by the same haunting whispers that had lured the other children, Timmy had become ensnared in the demon's trap. As Detective Harper's ritual reached its crescendo, a dark shadow loomed outside the chamber. Malgorth's malevolent presence crept closer, its insidious laughter echoing through the halls. The demon had sensed the detective's intent and was eager to thwart his plans once more. The final battle commenced with a clash of wills and a torrent of energy. Malgorth materialized before the detective, its form shifting and contorting in the dim light. Its eyes blazed with a hunger for the detective's soul, intent on breaking his resolve and consuming him as it had done with countless others. For a moment, it seemed that Detective Harper would succumb to the overwhelming darkness. The weight of the demon's malevolence threatened to crush him. His courage wavered. But then, in a critical moment, he found strength in the memories of the innocent children, their hopeful faces etched in his mind. Summoning an inner resolve he didn't know he possessed, Detective Harper pushed back against the darkness. With every ounce of determination, he channeled the ancient energies of the ritual, creating a shield of light that repelled Malgorth's onslaught. The chamber erupted into a swirling tempest of energy, and the battle raged on, the very fabric of reality warping around them. Detective Harper's heart pounded with the strain, but he refused to yield. He had faced darkness before and emerged stronger. He was not just a detective, he was a guardian of innocence, and that gave him a strength beyond measure. With a final surge of power, Detective Harper launched a decisive attack, directing the forces of the ritual at Malgorth. The demon shrieked in agony as the light pierced its malevolent form. Its power waned, and its hold on the stolen children weakened. In a desperate attempt to escape, Malgorth vanished into the shadows, leaving the chamber engulfed in an ethereal glow. Detective Harper had won the battle, but he knew the war was far from over. Determined to free the abducted children from the demon's clutches, Detective Harper scoured the town, following every trail and clue. Through dark woods and forgotten ruins, he pressed forward until he found the hidden lair where Malgorth had kept its captives. The children, pale and frightened, huddled together in the dimly lit cavern. As the detective approached, they looked up with tear-stained faces, a glimmer of hope in their eyes. With gentle reassurance, he led them back to the light of day, promising to reunite them with their families. With the ritual complete and the demon banished, Detective Harper returned the children to their relieved parents. Oakridge would never forget the horrors that had unfolded within its borders, but the town was now safe from the malevolent force that had haunted it for generations. As the days turned to weeks and the weeks to months, the memory of Malgorth began to fade into the past. Detective Harper returned to his life as a detective, but the experience had forever changed him. He carried the weight of those dark days, a reminder of the fragile line between light and shadow. The stolen children, now safe and surrounded by love, would grow up with tales of the detective who had saved them from the clutches of darkness. And while the scars of the past would linger, Oakridge would forever remember the courage of one man who had stared into the abyss and emerged victorious.